Hi everyone. In this episode, we can discuss the structure of editor. Editor is a system software. These are the components of the editor. Command language processor, editing component, traveling component, viewing component, display component, editing buffer, viewing buffer, editing filter, viewing filter, main memory, and the file system. The components of the editing system are listed here. Command language processor. This is the first component. It accepts the input from the user's device, analyzes the tokens and syntactic structure of the commands, which means if the user inputs a text or a sentence, it is divided into different tokens like words. It functions like the lexical and syntactic phases of a compiler. This command language processor invokes the semantic routines directly, which means it calls different functions of the editor. The command language processor also produces an intermediate representation. This representation is decoded by an interpreter. Editing component. This does the editing task or modifying the text document. In editing a document, the start of the area to be edited is determined by the current editing pointer. So this current editing pointer can be set or reset due to these commands like next paragraph, next screen, cut paragraph, paste paragraph, etc. Editing filter and buffer. So this filtering consists of selection of continuous characters. So filtering means selecting a part from the text document and that part is given to the buffer. So in this figure we can see that editing filter select a particular part from the input text and it is given to the editing buffer. The editing commands invokes the editing filter. Editing filter filters the document to generate a new editing buffer. Viewing component. In a text document, at a time we can view only some part of the document which is shown in the monitor. So this viewing component is a collection of modules responsible for determining the next view. In viewing document, the start of the area to be viewed, that is determined by the current viewing pointer. This pointer is maintained by the viewing component. Viewing filter and buffer. The viewing filter selects a particular part of the document and stores that into the viewing buffer. This is based on the current viewing pointer, that is which part to be viewed. In line editors, the viewing buffer may contain the current line. In screen editors, it may contain the rectangular part. The viewing buffer is then passed to the display component of the editor. Display component. This produces a display by mapping the buffer to a rectangular subset of the screen called the window. So here in this figure we can see that. So this is the viewing buffer. This content of the viewing buffer is mapped to a rectangular portion in the screen. So the mapping of viewing buffer to window is accomplished by two components. One is the viewing component, which formulates an ideal view, and the display component takes this ideal view from viewing component and maps it to the output device. The components of the editor deal with the user document on two levels, which means the user document can be either in memory or in disk file. So if it is in disk file, it has to be brought into memory whenever required. So that process is known as demand paging, and use separate data structure for the editor, which allows addition, deletion, and modification with a minimum input, output, and character movement. Many editors also use terminal control database. Based on computing environments, the editors can be divided into three types: time-sharing system, standalone system, and distributed system. In time-sharing environment, the editor must function swiftly within the context of the load on the computer's processor, memory, and I/O devices. It's to share the resources. So in standalone environment, editors on standalone systems are built with all the functions to carry out editing and viewing operations. It works on a standalone system. In distributed environment, editor has both functions of standalone editor, which is to run independently on each user's machine, and like a time sharing editor, it shares the resources such as files. Thank you.